I'm just going to go through the Muhdo data platform, what we can do with it, and some of the information and insights we have garnered over the past year, and some of the research that we are looking to do in the future. The structure of our platform is basically a pyramid. At the bottom, our foundations is the data platform. This is where we keep all our raw data, all the testing data we get from DNA methylation, from genotyping, from environment, and all that is stored in the data platform. That is what we are going to go through today. The next part is our practitioner portal, and this will contain some of that genotyping, some of that methylation data, but also some more algorithmic outcomes for practitioners and clinicians to talk with their patients or clients. At the top of the pyramid, we have the mobile application. This is what consumers get when they buy the product. And the more they use the mobile app, the more information and more data we can gain and push back into the data platform, which then feeds the rest of the pyramid. So therefore, the more users we have, the more information we get, the more the data platform grows, and the better the user interface is, and better the users' testing results will be, and more accurate they will be. The Muhdo app basically is a mobile phone app where people can track all their information on. They can look at their genotyping results, they can look at their DNA methylation results, their biological aging, they can track their training, their diet, their nutrition, how many steps they do. They can also pull in data from their Apple Health, Samsung Health, etc. to basically fill in more environmental data for the application. We currently have about 21,000 individuals on our dataset, and this dataset consists of genotyping from the GSA to whole genome sequencing, DNA methylation from the EPIC 850K, 950K, and a masked array. We have lifestyle survey, hundreds of questions, medical history, family history, supplements, drugs, the face scan from our mobile camera, blood testing, exercise and tracking data, the GPS pollution data, and ethnicity data, all stored on each individual. And all of this information goes into our data set. Okay, so on to the exciting stuff. This is a insight on users who take ibuprofen. There are 68 in total, and the background cohort is 1,211 of people who take no medication at all. What we can see is that ibuprofen actually causes significant hypermethylation compared to hypomethylation. Each dot represents a CpG site, with 0 being the background. So against the background, we can see the ibuprofen cohort cause hypermethylation on multiple sites. There is actually some significant hypomethylation on a few sites, and those sites are actually related to superior aging. So some clocks will use inflammation markers as a way of measuring age, and obviously ibuprofen being an anti-inflammatory may actually affect the methylation on some of those sites. This was an interesting cohort of people with the APOE3/4 or 44 genoset, which is associated with Alzheimer's. There was actually very significant methylation differences against the background of people without the APOE4 genoset. It actually seemed to cause some aggressive impact on specific sites, and these sites were correlated again in a later slide when we looked at Alzheimer's. So there are some other sites which are away from APOE4 which showed methylation, and these actually are linked to things like cancer. So the genoset itself seems to cause some aggressive methylation differences, although in our cohort we only had 13. It's obviously quite a rare genoset to have. This current insight here is to look at people with a vitamin D3 deficiency pre and post intervention. So as we can see in the pre setting here, that people who took vitamin D3 changed their methylation patterns after 16 weeks, quite dramatically actually. As you can see in the deficient cohort, which was 523, you could see that many sites were aggressively hypermethylated, with some being hypomethylated, and nearly no site matched the background cohort of people who were not deficient in vitamin D3 or suffered from any other pathology. However, post-intervention, you can see that many of the sites which are aggressively hypermethylated started to return to normal, and many of the sites which were aggressively hypomethylated also began to return to the normal. One site remained pretty much fixed, so that may need a different type of intervention to change it. So it's really interesting to see how we can create this pre and post study result on multiple CpG sites across multiple genes. This was a quick study we did looking at the GPS data we collect from the mobile phone app. It looked at a gene called FOXO3, which is highly associated with longevity. One of the sites had no change on FOXO3, it was already hypermethylated, it remained so. One of the sites showed aggressive hypermethylation with increasing AQI. So the worse the pollution levels, the more methylation occurred across this site, which may lead to lowered gene expression and a worsened longevity. The next area is an area that we actually published. This looked at methylation on a gene called PPARG, which is highly associated with injury and inflammation modulation. It showed that football players with increasing methylation on the gene also correlated with a faster chance of going into overtraining and also to a higher propensity to become injured during play or during training. So again, another little study that we've done using the data that we have collected. This insight looked at fatigue, so a modified fatigue severity score, which is associated with conditions such as fibromyalgia. And what we looked at was a gene called PICARD, which is associated with inflammatory mechanisms. And it showed that as methylation started to increase, so did the severity on the modified fatigue severity score. And so basically, as the gene expressed less, people's fatigue levels or perceived fatigue levels actually worsened. This was a quick study we did for corporate health. We looked at days off sick longer than a day, and we looked at the VDR, so the vitamin D receptor. As methylation levels appeared to increase across VDR, we also found that people's bouts of sickness over a day also seemed to increase. So not actually at the vitamin D levels in the blood, but actually the level of methylation on the vitamin D receptor seems to affect your ability to fight off an infection and maybe the robustness to getting an infection as well. Okay, so this was looking at an Alzheimer's cohort, or actually a combined Alzheimer's and dementia cohort of 395 against a background cohort of 591, but also the age range was between 40 and 100. What was really interesting in this study was that one site actually had a perfect hypomethylation correlation to Alzheimer's. Which is very poorly studied right now. So we are actually going to look at this site in far more detail. Overall, though, there was 103 sites which showed very significant methylation changes in the Alzheimer's group, which are all worthy of continued study, with actually 10,000 sites passing the lowish threshold for significant change. In a previous slide, I showed you the APOE4 genoset methylation, and actually some of these sites which showed aggressive hypo and hypermethylation in the APOE4 genoset also show the same aggressive the same aggressive hyper and hypomethylation changes in the Alzheimer's set as well, even though there's only 13 people with that genoset, and we do actually have 395 with Alzheimer's/dementia here. So what can be done with all this information? Well, we can make secondary products. So these are products based on the science that we already have. It will give them a firm scientific foundation. We have shown that we can create products which can alter methylation patterns, can be tailored to specific genotypes or tailored to certain groups of people. These products could range from supplements to drugs to bioelectric devices to diet or lifestyle books and literature. Academic researchers can use this. Researchers can use the data to identify markers that they can take into clinical trials. The data can also be used for trials and for cohorts to be created against. So you could create a pathological cohort or a norm cohort to put against another cohort from a trial. Also, obviously, primary product development. So these are tests that can test for bioage, the pace of aging, diseases, and other factors. Um, and these are being developed right now by us, but can be developed by others as well. Okay, so that's the end of the quick presentation. We have got some upcoming product releases, and that's called Methyl Pace, and this will be a brand new bioage pace of aging test using the data that you have seen here today.